Dr. Shade, I'm so pumped to have you on. And here's the thing. I'm gonna say something. I don't want anybody getting mad at me here, but I have always had a crush on your brain. I have been listening to I've been
Thank
listening.
you.
I mean, you're the perfect blend of intelligent and yet laid back. And that's why I jive with you because you're blunt as hell, just like me. We tell it like it is. And I think that's what really resonates with people. You know, they get you and then they're
Yeah.
drawn in to listen to your information. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad it works out. I just love doing this, and yeah, it's easy for me once you just let me be blunt and
You can say
talk. Everything
anything you
works well.
want,
All right.
anything you want on this show whatsoever. Now, of course, I'm going to pick your brain about the things that you are a master on, and that is detox. So I want to jump in. Well, first, I want to tell the listeners, for anybody that's been living under a rock and doesn't know who you are and doesn't know your company, Quicksilver Scientific. I've been using them and recommending. I've been using your company, recommending Quicksilver for years, for decades, because I know the man behind it. I've heard you for years. I know the research and the love and attention you put into these products. But can you just tell the listeners, how did you move into really deep diving into what people need for detox and so many other things? I mean, Quicksilver has a whole host of
Yeah.
products, but that's kind of your specialty, and that's what I want to really hone in on today.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of a long story. Everybody wants it to be a linear story, but it never is, you
Right.
know. And I was like, I was in college and I was supposed to be this environmental scientist, and I just didn't like that how that whole game is played. It's kind of bullshit. And and then I had this opportunity to start an organic farm. And so I did that. And, you know, I joked that I went out of business as an organic farmer the year that Whole Foods came around. You know, it was a little too early. But I had this vision of natural health and being able to build soil ecosystems and raise people's health up. You know, I grew up like not believing in anything and, you know, really shifted during college. You know, it might have been the LSD, but something happened and there was a big shift. And I got way into this organic farming and then building health that way. And then, you know, like I said, I went out of business doing that. It was a little too early for that. I did a couple of other things. And eventually I came back around to studying agricultural pollution and got a master's degree doing that. And then I went for my PhD and I studied environmental metals as pollutants, as specifically mercury, and hence quicksilver is the old word for mercury. It means liquid silver. And I had specialized testing for that. And I wanted to bring that out, you know, looking at different forms of pollution in people. And I realized that there was no good way to get it out. I saw people using chelators, DMPS, DMSA, with mixed or very negative results. On me, they had very negative results, and you know, just got me really sicker. You know, I was doing a PhD on mercury, and I had 17 amalgams in my mouth. It's so funny. These guys on my thesis committee were like, "Yeah, we're measuring picograms of mercury in a little shrimp, you know, but these grams of mercury up here, yeah, they must be okay." Like, what kind of cognitive dissonance lets you do that? But you know, once I saw it, I was like, oh, I gotta get this stuff out and fix the way that the body works. Because we're not in that total industrialist land where we're living, you know, under coal fire, you know, coal smoke hanging above us, and you know,
Right.
there's metals all over us. We're not in that hyper acute exposure. I mean, now we have more chemicals than ever, and there's a big soup of it, but a lot of it's this lifestyle down regulation of detoxification.
Mm-hmm.
And that does two things. One, it makes you get rid of the toxins more slowly. And at a cellular level, it lets the toxins go in and beat your cell up, your mitochondria, your membrane function, all the enzymatic functions. So it's making you weak and accumulate things. And so I was like, we got to flip this around and make us resistant to the things at a cellular level and a whole body level, make us push everything out. And so I built Quicksilver Scientific, first doing testing. Then I had a specialized binder for mercury called IMD, and that fixed me from all my problems and everything that the chelators did to me. And then that it was just like the quintessential binder. And then from there, I had to go upstream and see how does the rest of the body work. So then I had to develop, if you want to get mercury out, you need glutathione. You need to link glutathione onto something, and then you got to push it through the liver. And then you got to catch it with the binder in the GI. So I got up and started saying, well, how do I get glutathione in? How do I get this in? And that led us to these delivery systems, liposomes, nanoemulsions, ways to take these things that you're putting in capsules and mostly flushing down the toilet and making sure that, boom, they get right into the blood and get all into action. All the different compounds you put in there all go in at once and all do their job. And you can really move the needle. So we were able to really get the cells and tissues to turn up their processes, kick stuff into the blood, move it to the liver, turn up the liver movement, have the binders on board, and really have a really solid detox. And then that delivery, we started applying that to cardiometabolic, cardiovascular, immunology, hormones, longevity stuff, and it all just spread from there by being able to get stuff in and understand the pathways you're working on.
And really, when we're talking about mercury specifically, there's a huge connection with mercury and the thyroid. And I'm
Right.
always having my patients, my listeners, go to a biological dentist, get the amalgam fillings out. But then after they do that, now they have to detox and get the mercury that's already in their tissues. And we know that mercury crosses the blood-brain barrier, right? So then that's an increased risk of Alzheimer's and everything that comes with mercury toxicity or even just mercury exposure.
Yeah.
So can you talk more about that connection between mercury and just heavy metals in general,
Yeah.
and the thyroid and hormones and how those are correlated and how that really screws us up?
Oh yeah. Hold on. It's the start of allergy season. So if I like stop and sneeze, be aware that one's coming.
You can do it.
Yeah. So there's very direct and indirect ways that the metals affect the thyroids. The three biggest ones are mercury, cadmium, and arsenic. Now, these all respond to glutathione conjugation and the same movement out as mercury. And they're very similar to mercury, so they have similar targets too. And the number one target in the thyroid is the deiodinase that takes T4 to T3. So if you're looking at your labs and you've got mid to upper T4, but like lower T3, that's an indication of a metal poisoning or something similar that's blocking the deiodinase. And that one's very, very well studied. And so then you're going to have this peripheral low thyroid, even if the signaling's there to put out the T4. Then at a mitochondrial level. So, when the thyroid's down, that's like a break on the whole mitochondrial system. And then you're just not making energy. Your metabolism is weak. You're not burning fuel. You're storing fuel. And this, if there's one way to characterize like a longevity versus, no wellness, it's whether you're in this cardiometabolic wellness that's burning energy and into burning fuel into energy, or if you're in this inflamed mode that's collecting and depositing, and we easily go back and forth between those. And so all of the health that we're doing is pushing over to this side, and this side includes sirtuin activity, AMPK activity. AMPK is when we fast or exercise or do carb restriction and we make ketones. That's AMPK activity. Sirtuins come along with AMPK activity and they need NAD, and they rule mitochondrial function, mitochondrial density. They rule the burning of energy versus the accumulation. And then over on this other side where you wind up inflammation, then you start depositing everything and slowing down your metabolism. And that's just, it's just a survival switch from the ice ages that only the people who could do that and like hibernate and get fat were the ones who would live through. And so now we have this cardiometabolic consequence that we easily get thrown over there. And the metals will throw us over there. They'll take us off of this. They'll block AMPK. They'll block the sirtuins. They get into the mitochondria and they soak up all the glutathione and the thyroidoxin that's supposed to protect the redox potential of the mitochondria, and they damage that mitochondria. So the mitochondria are making more free radicals than they're making ATP. And so that dual way that mercury gets right into the thyroid and slows down mitochondrial function, and then gets right into the mitochondria and damages mitochondria all through the system. And so that's bringing that fatigue down to the system. Then you go up into the brain and the hormones. So in the brain, mercury is going right into the glutamate receptors. 80% of all neurotransmission in the brain is the excitatory glutamate receptor, and it's glutamate going in and out. And that is what makes you on it and like vigilant and stuff. But when it's too active, it's also making you fight or flight or sympathetic autonomic dominant. The other half is GABA, which is your chill neurotransmitter. And that's, you know, eating, feeding, rest. It's rest, digest, repair, regenerate, detoxify is all on that side. And so all the healing goes on that, and that's the parasympathetic autonomic tone. So mercury shifts you over to sympathetic all the time, and so you're stressing, but at the same time it's turned down all the energy, and then you're aware of all these things you haven't done, and then you're gaining weight, and you got, you know, anxiety about all that stuff. And so that's sort of like hypothyroid syndrome, where you're just weak, tired, and freaking out about it.
And that makes me think about some patients that I have, even that, you know, we test them, we see that, just like you said in the beginning, the low free T3, okay, free T4, maybe an elevated reverse T3. So we start treatment, you know, let's change this up. Let's reduce your T4. Let's add in some T3. Let's put you on NDT, whatever that personalized plan looks like. And they're still not getting better. I mean, it really sounds like mercury is basically a shit show for the entire body, that no matter what you do, unless you address that, we can throw all the medication at you that we want. It's not going to produce the ultimate result, or you could still have the brain issues, the fatigue, the weight gain, it outside of being on the proper thyroid hormone replacement. Am I saying that right?
As long as you've been absolutely. Once the toxins are in there, you can't, you know, it's like a wrench in the gears. You can't just put more gas on the motor and hope the gears are going to turn. You know, the whole thing may break. And as long as you've been hypothyroid, you've been in this inflammatory, low energy, low mitochondrial state, you've been accumulating toxins. And it's not until we get rid of them can everything work well.
Yeah.
This is slightly different, but I just worked on a Lyme case, and this guy had every antibiotic and everything thrown at him. And then we brought all these new things at him, you know, making sure we're really eradicating all this. And he had this dizziness where he couldn't work, and he was a farmer. He's used to working all the time. And, you know, a lot of the other things went away, but he couldn't walk, you know, and so I kept him going a little bit longer on these cryptolepis and all these herbs that'll really knock that off. And I'm like, okay, now we got to detox you and see how we come out from this. And put him on our advanced push catch, which is my favorite, like 1 month box. He got a week in. He doubled I said, you're going to want double the dose. He doubled the dose himself. 10 days later, my assistant talked to him. He said, I haven't felt this good as long as I can remember. Awesome. You know, and it was like you killed the bugs, but all the toxins are there. And there are neurotoxins, you know, we got to take those out. So you turn up the thyroid, but the thyrotoxins are in there, and you got to get those out before you really do that. Hey, hormones the same way. You know, hormones, you got all these toxins, these plasticides, there's pesticides, herbicides that are endocrine disrupting compounds, and they go in and they occupy hormone receptors, and you can put all the hormones in, but if you got the bad guys in the receptors, nothing's going to work. Or if you got bad guys, I mean, they're either occupying the receptors and you can't get a hormone in, or they're over activating them, and you're like, God, why am I so estrogenic when my estrogen's low? You got to go in and clean that stuff out, and then your hormones can go in and really sing. And, you know, they're always going to be going sideways when they're on a high toxic load. And so it's really, that was like a naturopathic fundamental principle, is detoxification. And I believe it wholeheartedly.
Now, would you do that before anyone started on thyroid hormone replacement or hormones?
No, I do
really at the same time. Yeah,
I do at the same time, because your thyroid hormone replacement, you're going to have to titrate that up. And so you're taking stuff out at the same time you're putting it in. And sometimes if you don't have the energy to turn over the mitochondria and bring the thyroid up, you don't have the energy to push stuff out. So people get very stuck into a binary thought of, well, I'm going to fix this before I do that. The worst of them all is, I'm going to fix the gut before I get any toxins out. You know, fixing the gut might be the most singular important thing that you do. But if the gut's fucked up because of the toxins, you're not going to fix it.
Right.
You put a bunch of collagen and marshmallow root in there, and some amino acids and probiotics. You got to take the stuff out. So you got to do it at the same time. Even when you're treating something like Lyme, you got to be pulling stuff out at the same time you're going in and killing. You're always doing that dance to find the right ratio of the two. But I really think detox while bringing on thyroid is just like it's a no-brainer. That's how you do it.
Okay. So we're basically in a world of toxins. Is it possible to get to a place where we can be like rid of that bombardment of toxins, that we can actually detox from the mercury, the heavy metals that are affecting our thyroid? Or are we just going to be more exposed every time we walk outside and breathe air?
You're going to be exposed all the time, but what you're going to do is you're going to free the system. It's been like conditioned not to work, and your cells are in fight or flight. They're like, we just got to stay alive, and you got to condition them that no, we got to take the time, and we got to drop this stuff off all the time, get rid of it all the time. Now, these things are happening on two levels. When you upregulate detoxification, there's a cellular trigger called NRF2, and it turns up the antioxidants and detox compounds in the cell, and it makes the cell immune to the toxins around it. And it'll push them out into the matrix around it. Now, that's going to make its way over to the liver, and you got to turn up liver processes to move that out, and kidney processes to move that out, and you need some binders. When you detox, you're going to do that whole scale, do all that stuff all at once, like our advanced push catch. You'll be doing that twice a day, and you do it, 2 months, maybe 3, like a formal detox. And then you're going to integrate this stuff in your life. Things like bitters. I mean, this is my favorite everyday detox. We have bitters 9 and bitters X. Even if you're putting cocktail bitters, into your soda water, you're opening up liver and getting bile drainage to move out of liver. Now, what's that significant to us? Bile drainage paths move the toxins. If you're not moving bile, that's called cholestasis. You're not moving any toxins. And then what happens is they build up in their liver, and then you spit them back into the blood, and they go all around through the body, and they land in places where it's inflamed. So if you already have inflammation in your thyroid, you're going to land more toxins in there. So it's important to always open that up and always dump it. And then binders are like such an easy thing, especially capsules of our binders, taking those at night, taking a few hours after the meal, maybe in the morning. There's so many ways to do it and integrate this stuff. Our push catch liver detox, having that around and doing a couple rounds on the weekend. I take liver, kidney, maybe some glutathione, hop in my sauna, 30 minutes later, take my binder. And that's just like, I'm just like a new man after that. And I do that a lot. You integrate it into your life. When do I take this stuff? Just get it into your life, and you will always be dumping stuff out, and you won't be sitting around like, afraid of the, next thing that moves, thinking you're going to get toxic from it.
Right. That's so true. I mean, I think that's important to remember, that people can do ongoing detox as well. But I know about the push catch system, but tell the listeners more about how much is involved, because whenever people hear the word detox, they think they're just going to poop every day. They're going to poop all day. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So many people are giving that push catch liver detox, and like 2 months later, 3 months later, they haven't done it. I'm like, why? Well, I'm kind of waiting. When I'm on vacation, I have a couple of days off, and then I could be at home, like right next to my bathroom.
Right.
No. The whole laxative detox thing, that does clear your bowel, and that's one of the ways people do stuff. Ours has nothing to do that. That's when you don't really know any biochemistry of detox. Just make them shit all day, and something will happen.
Right.
But this isn't how that happens. In fact, you might have to, with the binders, you might have to take extra magnesium to make sure you're going enough. And in fact, when you get diarrhea, you just take lots of those binders, and it clears it all out. So what's involved in it? This push catch liver detox, real simple. One part is a liquid called liver sauce. And you take a teaspoon of that, hold it in your mouth, and that's got a bunch of compounds in it. It's got some whole plant extracts and pure compounds, and that activates detox at a cellular tissue level. It activates liver movement. It activates the movement of the toxins out with the bile. So that gets the whole thing flushed and down to the GI, cell to blood, blood to liver, liver to bile, bile to GI, and then you come in a half hour later with the binder. Now, the binder is this black powder. You shake it up in a little shaker with water, and it is black water, has zero taste. drink it down, or if you're doing the capsules, you just take them. And that'll bind up all the toxins that went down there, and maybe a little bit before you take those binders, you might feel a little funny. And then you take the binders and you're like, oh, wow, I feel great. And so you do that, wake up in the morning, take the liquid, half hour later, take the binder. If you're adding on kidney and glutathione and phosphatidylcholine, all the good stuff to really deepen it up, take those all at the same time as your liver sauce. Again, half hour later, take your binder. What do you do in between? Light walk, some yoga, sauna is my thing, foot bath, do some work, whatever you want to do. You can drink coffee, you can drink tea, and it's really easy and it's so powerful. And then you should do that a second time during the day. And, you do that for a couple of weeks to a few months, you're going to clear so much out and you're going to feel so much better. You're not going to go through these, oh, I feel like crap. Remember the Cutler protocol for DMSA and lipoic acid. For 52 rounds, that's a year, you're going to feel worse.
Oh, so bad.
After the first year, you're going to start to feel the same as before you started. And then eventually you're going to transition into better. And like all these people were like freaking zealots about that because this guy cultivated really dysfunctional people that had father like abuse issues. I mean, this really is how this all worked. If you ever dissented in this crowd, you were immediately excommunicated and just excoriated. And it was like the verbal stuff was horrible. In fact, and I was like I was like a totally different system. They actually labeled me a murderer.
Nice. Congratulations on
murderer.
that. Yeah. Okay.
Christopher Shade, PhD, MDR for murderer.
Right.
And they wouldn't go to one conference because I went there. Why do they hate me? Because in 3 months you felt freaking great,
Right. And it's simple. And it's simple too.
3 months you felt great, and it used your own system. You didn't have to use the chelators.
Right. Right. Exactly.
I mean, his system was coherent, but it wasn't the best way to go.
I have known some people to do that, and oh man, were they sick. I mean, it brought up a whole host of other symptoms that they didn't even know would pop up. They were trying to deal with this set over here.
On every 3-hour schedule, and if anything went wrong, it was because you didn't hold the schedule. You were 10 minutes off. That's why you have a brain aneurysm.
Right. Exactly.
I'm like, really? Yeah, great. If you believe that one.
No, this is so simple. And even outside of the DMSO, I've seen liver protocols, liver detoxes that involve 10 different products. And like you said, listen, you can add in glutathione if you want, you can add in kidney, you can add in phosphatidylcholine, but you don't have to. If you just wanted to do the push catch system, you could just do that. You're just going to get a benefit. But these other protocols that are 10 supplements long, I mean, people just end up getting tired, brain fatigued, sick of taking things. It's just not.
All those Herxheimer reactions and stuff are not lining it all up and not going out. It's going around, it's making its way to your brain. It's supposed to be making its way to the liver, and you're pooping it out, you're pissing it out. As long as everything's going down and out, you're golden. You're not going to have problems. You might have a day or two where it's like a little bit of an overload, but it's not this constant, and you get past that and you're, God, I feel good. I mean, I've had girls come here, so many people come work here, and soon they're doing triple push catches, like 3 teaspoons of liver sauce and like double thing of binder twice a day. And like, I feel great because that's what happens, because these paths you're hitting, NRF2 is a cleanup, but AMPK comes right there with it. So many of these compounds do both, and AMPK just tunes your energy up and it lowers, increases insulin sensitivity, lowers resistance, increases glucose transporters, increases ketone formation. All these things are bringing more energy to your brain, and you're burning, and you're just like, this is freaking great.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note too, the insulin resistance, oh my God. I mean, 95% of my people have insulin resistance because it goes hand in hand with hypothyroidism. And so many of them will say, but I'm eating right.
And so you're really hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. I mean, a bunch of the really good cases that I did, one for Dale Bredesen, he's the famous Alzheimer's researcher. He brought this guy, he'd done the whole Bredesen protocol the way it used to be, which is put more stuff in. Your brain doesn't work because you don't have enough oils, you don't have enough of this, and you need some more carnitine, and didn't do jack. And somebody suggested he measured his mercury. His mercury was off the chart. So I didn't even know who Dale was. And and somebody set up a consult. So I was on with this guy and Dale says, all right, here's what he got. And he's got all the early onset Alzheimer's, racing mind, anxiety, and metabolic disease
Mm-hmm.
and fatty liver.
Yep.
And we put him on the detox. A couple months through that, I brought him back to Dale. Boom. All the neurological stuff was gone. And so was the fatty liver and the metabolic disease. They go hand in hand. You're hitting the same triggers. That's why this system hits all that and you feel so damn good.
I love it. I love it. Okay. I'm going to pull the push catch over here we're going to talk alcohol. The other thing I love about you is that you don't stand on a pedestal and say, you don't drink, don't have sex, don't eat too much, caloric restrict, live a miserable life, and you'll be okay. You'll live to 500. Like
I'm not that guy.
No, I'm not either. I live my life. But what I love is that you have developed a way for us to still have our drinks and have our cocktails, but not toxify ourselves. So can you start off by, let's talk about alcohol, because I think a lot of people don't even realize that it is a toxin and a poison. And then what's the answer for it so we don't do the damage that it does if we're not using something in conjunction?
Yeah, I know. I mean, alcohol, look, it's our longest lived, most loved drug as humans. It's like all that old sort of waxing poetic about it, and it's warming your spirit and making you ebullient and effervescent. Like that's all true. It's the social lubricant,
Social.
and it's a lot of fun. And then it has all these other problems, but it is a toxin, and hence the hangover and all that. And so we want to turn up our body's ability to process it out so you're not feeling it the next day. And actually, so you get more sober towards, you're not going to bed all drunk.
Mhm.
It's like it both clears you up and it gets you through the next day. And so the ones that go in that drinker's batch are a nano milk thistle, a B complex, and a bitters. And so the milk thistle, it's funny, I made this to save my own ass after going to Tokyo. And I was on this long trip. I was in Australia. I was in all these, I lectured all over Australia. I went to Hong Kong, then I went to Tokyo, finished like this long run of lecturing. And then these guys took me to this expat district called Roppongi. And it was like, oh my God, there was just so much drinking that night. It was just insane. And I had like a 7-day hangover, and I just wasn't getting rid of this. No amount of glutathione or anything did it. And I went into my R&D place, and I'm like, we had samples of all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, oh, there's some milk thistle, pure silymarin that these guys sent me. They wanted me to work on some product for them. And I'd taken the capsules of it and never really did anything. And I put it in this nanoparticle. In like 30 minutes, I was better. And from then on, I was able to drink brown alcohols. I could never drink brown alcohols before. They would just crush me. But now, Japanese whiskey, bourbon, rye, all that stuff. So milk thistle turns up a number of different enzymes to break down the alcohol. And there's a number of steps alcohol needs to be broken down in, or it builds up as these things like acetaldehyde, which is like a formaldehyde. It's like embalming fluid. That's why if you drink way too much, you feel like you've been embalmed, you're dead and you're in a viewing casket. And so it breaks all that stuff and makes sure that, it's going all the way out to these products that you excrete very easily. So you having that beforehand. The B complex, a lot of these enzymes have cofactors that help them help the enzymes break everything down. Chief to that is B1 as a cofactor to alcohol dehydrogenase. And then remember the bitters, it's the movement of the bile that's stimulated by the bitters touching bitter receptors in your mouth and throughout the body that get that liver to move the toxins out. So you're feeding the enzymes, you have the cofactors for the enzymes, and you're fluidizing the liver and moving everything out with the bile. Like when I get an old fashioned, it's half sweet, triple bitter. You order it like that, they won't put so much sugar in there, and they'll put a bunch, 6 or 8 dashes of Angostura. You'll see it be darker, it'll taste better, and it'll go through easier. So that's our alcohol. It's a protection bundle, so you can go out and have those things. And you'll see, man, people are just blown away. These people are like, I can only have one drink and then I'm a mess.
Right.
And they're like, I feel great. I can't believe it.
So we're going to still use the push catch with this, right? Like, how are we
Yeah,
going to
but
plan this
this is
out? All right,
like
we got a
when we
night
go
out.
drink, we're going to use our alcohol mitigation thing. This is the funny thing, we always have internal names for these, like R&D names. We don't always use them because you know what the internal name for that bundle was?
Hmm.
The enabler.
I love that though.
Isn't that
Maybe we
funny?
should market it like that. I
Yeah,
don't
and
know.
inside everybody's, we'll have a party. It was just my birthday. There's a big party over there. Everybody's like, "Where's the enabler?" And it'll be out. There'll be like 2 stations with all the bottles, and
Mm-hmm.
but then the
Okay.
push catch is, I'm doing that sort of like after the damage,
Okay.
keeping everything moving, really good, doing a thorough detox. And you can throw binders in before you go to bed and stuff. There's all these different ways to sort of mix it up. But that really, liver sauce, that binder, I do that more, morning, afternoon, and then at night I just use those three products.
So will you just take them with you to like a
Yeah.
party or a
Oh yeah.
dinner and just
They're like they're out on the table all the time, and the waitress is like, "What are you doing?" The bartender's like, "You make your own bitters." It's like everybody loves it. It's like I've given away so many bottles to restaurant people.
yeah, you're saving the day. That's why. Yeah. There and people are gonna buy more buy
Yep.
more alcohol at the restaurant if you can keep
Yep.
them
Oh
feeling
yeah.
good. Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love it. All right. So I want to move into hormones because you also are diving into this world. I mean, hormones
Oh,
give us life. I am a huge bioidentical hormone
oh,
proponent. I take it, I give it, we prescribe it, the whole deal.
yep.
But now you're making it easier for people to use it because you can get very potent hormones over the counter now. So talk to me about that whole process. What got you into it, and about the products too.
Yeah, I've loved hormone stuff for a long time. I started working on hormones in 2014, and I was learning some stuff from a guy named Mark Gordon, and then he suggested I try to figure out testosterone and liposome, and no, I looked all through the literature. Nobody had been able to do it. And then I started, rethinking how I make these particles. And I had this aha moment, flipped kind of upside down how you would normally do something. And then boom, I had testosterone in this sublingual nanoparticle. Now I can't sell testosterone. And so
Damn it.
I know it's so freaking good. So I'm licensing that to the compounding pharmacies. And for women, men, just different doses. But then all these other ones, DHEA, pregnenolone, I started working with them. And then I was like, well, how can I actually sell some of this stuff? And turns out cosmetic laws allow you to use progesterone, estriol, and estradiol, and estrone if you wanted it, up to certain levels in topical creams. And usually, they're thought of as like beauty aids, but so you can do these creams and put it on topically for beauty. But if you make these things right, like a nano serum stuff, there's enough to go all the way in and really help you, with your systemic levels. And so we were able to solve everything. Our androgen source for women, you drive the DHEA in the nanoparticles with dim and chrysin and some adaptogens. It all goes into androgen. So you'll have super physiologic DHEA. You'll have testosterone at or above reference ranges, like top of the reference range.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have, androstenedione and a couple other, all at high levels, and you're not making any estrogen. So then you can control the estrogen with the topicals.
Right.
So when you're younger, 35, 40, you might want that androgen push. Maybe you want some progesterone. Maybe you don't need any estrogens. As you're moving more towards perimenopause, you start layering estriol, lots of estriol. Estriol doesn't have any of the worries around proliferation, around breast issues, but it is preferential for the receptor that's in the urinary tract, the vaginal tract, the whole pelvic floor. And so those chronic UTIs start going away because you rebuild that lining in there. Vaginal dryness goes away. When they talk about vaginal atrophy, people always talk about dryness like that's it, but it's really thinning of the walls, thinning of the musculature, softening of the whole vulval area is kind of loosening up.
Mm-hmm.
And so this just tightens it. And they're actually vulval topicals. topicals, and they're
Okay.
pH adjusted. If they got in there, it's good. It's meant to go that way, but we sell them as topicals, so it's vulval and facial topical. And estriol can be used on the face too. In fact, I use it. It's really good for thickening and plumping and thinning out those lines. And then as you get closer into menopause, then you add estradiol, maybe as a biased or the pure estradiol, as the flashing starts happening, and then you quench that. And so, as you're moving through time, it's basically DHEA first, pregnenolone, maybe with it, then estriol's added in, then the diol comes in. And, you can titrate these things up from small doses to high doses, really individuated for you. And, we've had lots, even before we released this stuff, I got all these 50 somethings that work for me, and they all switched over either from nothing or from their bioidenticals onto this. They all been on it 3 years and swear by it.
Well, I was going to ask you, if someone's already on, let's say, a BHRT protocol, can they just add the estriol for the face plumping and for just the vaginal application and
Oh yeah,
rejuvenation?
I mean that one, because let me tell you, like we have this whole thing, we have this new product coming, the facial beauty and vaginal beauty, talking about vaginological age. It's like it's like your methylation age, your biological age versus your chronological. That estriol topically for a while just pulls it backward. I mean, it's crazy, and the women are all like, I can't believe how young that is. It really does it. So you can add those things in topically and stay on your BHRT, or you can transition over to this instead of your BHRT, your compounded BHRT. This is BHRT, it's just not compounded. So you can do it any of the different ways.
Okay.
But
All right.
I mean, this completely does the whole package.
That's crazy. Okay, so the big question I know that I'll be asked if I don't ask it now, are you able to sell the same potency as what we would get at the compounding pharmacy? Or how does a woman figure out, okay, I want to transition from this 0.05 patch to using your stuff?
Yeah. We have an online learning management system where you can train in our system. We would give some approximations to jump across. And you're going to make your estimation and say, okay, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to do 1 pump a day of estradiol to match my patch here. And you're just going to try it then and see, where are my symptoms? Have I started to flash? Well, maybe I need to. Am I have too much fluid coming out and maybe some anxiousness, maybe I need a little bit less. And, it's all symptom based in the end anyways, because you can do urinary levels or serum levels, but how that all plays out in the body is a combination of the hormone levels and the receptor density. And so you have to look at what levels make these people happy and make them sing. But we have approximations to jump across. And, 80% of the people, you just tell me your age, when you last cycled, and I'll give you a protocol and it'll work for 80% of the people. And the other 20, you got to go in and tune up a little bit.
Now we have to have progesterone on top of this, right? And
we have a lot. So we do. We use a ton of the progesterone, and that one sells the most. People love it. And and that's always the question: am I getting enough progesterone? So when you're taking a tablet and you're taking 100 milligrams, that's got 9% bioavailability. So you're taking 9 milligrams. When you're doing with us 12 to 16 milligrams topical, there's no doubt we're getting 9 of that in. The delivery is really, really good. So people just got to get used to the fact that their topical dose is somewhere between 8 and 16, maybe 20 milligrams at the most, maybe twice a day. Some people need more, some people need less. And people are like, well, why don't you make it so it's 100 milligrams or 200 milligrams like this cream is? I'm like, when you look at a cream, this is why they're big into micronized. It's ground up hormone in a cream base. And if you put it in a microscope, you see ground up hormone in a cream base. It's chunks of hormone in a cream base and a little layer of dissolved stuff on the outside of the chunk. So when you rub it on, the cream base goes in and you got little chunks of hormone all over here. That's why transference is a big deal. And that's why the amount of milligrams you're putting on seems like a lot. I'm doing 80 milligrams. It's like, well, I can put more in, but it's not going to be dissolved. It's just going to sit on the outside. It's a different approach with the nano serum. The numbers are different, but we give you like, here's the range that people use, and they thrive on these ranges.
And you can feel the difference. I mean, you know when you're
Oh yeah.
taking the right amount because
Oh
especially
yeah, especially the
progesterone.
progesterone. And I do that for sleep. Guys do great on like one pump at night for sleep. And you put it on. I remember the first time, we made it and I put it on a bunch of people and they're like, whoa, did you put weed in there? Because we're in Colorado. Because it was just like, whoa, that's so nice.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you about guys too, if we can
Yeah.
start massaging our significant other's neck and throw some progesterone on there to chill them out. That's
Oh
cool.
my God. That's what it was. So yesterday we had this speaker and I don't know, somehow hormones came up and I said, yeah, my ex-wife used to tell me when I was being an asshole, take some progesterone, rub some progesterone on it, it would chill me out every time. Lo and behold, she's with one of my other distributors and another friend in Florida watching it. Calls me afterward. But that is it. I mean, it is the chill pill for the guys. It is the CBD of hormones. And for guys who don't sleep well, it's amazing. And there's Michael Pratt had a whole book about adrenaline dominance.
Hmm.
And when you're just like jacked, and he called that adrenaline dominance, and the cure for it was topical progesterone. It really calms you down, and you feel it right away. And then you were talking about rubbing it in the neck. It's great in the neck, all around here. But whenever there's pain, if there's like a jacked vertebrae or a muscle, rub it in there. It'll take pain down so fast. When the thyroid's wound up, rub it in there. It calms down the thyroid. Somewhere in your back, it's amazing what it does. It's like it does everything.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna have to try that now. I'm gonna try that on my husband too, chill him out.
Yep.
So
Fill
that's
him
awesome.
out, he'll be all sweet.
I love it. So, well, speaking of chill, last question I have for you, and this is kind of tying everything together. GABA. I know that you mentioned GABA in the beginning, and that also helps calm us. So many of my people have trouble sleeping, even with the progesterone on top of it, even with magnesium. So, what can we do to get them sleeping? Because then we have again heavy metal toxicity, their thyroid's jacked up, their hormones are out of whack, their liver isn't processing things. What can we do to get them to chill and sleep?
Yeah, and so, in the brain, that GABA glutamate thing, estrogen goes with the glutamate, and so do the toxins, and so that winds them up. And then progesterone works with the GABA system and makes the GABA receptors more receptive. Now, if that's not enough, then you can feed in a liposomal GABA L-theanine. CBD helps. We have our CBD Synergies AX has CBD and GABA. Lipocalm, oh my God, that one is so good. That's Pharma GABA with skullcap and passion flower. So there's a bunch of tools over there. You're working on the GABA receptors with GABA, CBD, progesterone, 5-HTP, melatonin can help. Our SP has 5-HTP and melatonin. So you just have those tools for over there and then strip the toxins away so they're not irritating that.
Mm-hmm. And just stack it all together. I mean, if you do
Yeah.
all of this, your quality of life is going to improve.
Oh yeah, there's
Bottom
no
line.
doubt.
Bottom
No
line.
doubt. And our CBD, yeah, so you got our CBD Synergies SP for sleep. That's got the melatonin. The CBD Synergies AX is more of a daytime, but it'll work to calm at night. Lipocalm, GABA, L-theanine, all those different products along with your progesterone. You'll find the one that works for you. And they always, improve your sleep scores.
Absolutely. And sleep is at the top of the list for everything. Detox and sleep. If we put
Yeah,
those two at the top, people's lives will get better and everything they're doing will actually work and they'll get some bang
yeah,
for their buck for the effort. So,
yeah.
yeah. Well, Dr. Shea, this has been awesome. I have wanted to pick your brain forever. I mean, I just appreciate your time so much and your knowledge and really giving people something that they can do that is easy. And that's the biggest thing. We hear so many experts out there with these huge protocols. This is simple. You just laid it out very simply for people
Yeah.
to implement into their life.
And it freaking works.
I know it just works. Boom. So that's what we want. That's what we want. So we'll put all the links for everything that Dr. Shade and I talked about into the show notes. If you guys are interested, I have used all of the products. Like I said, I've been using them for years now. So I'm familiar with how they work, but I wanted the expert on to tell you all how they work and what you can do to improve your body, improve your life. So thank you again, Dr. Shade, for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.